The Vedas, Upanishads, and Puranas are packed with fantastic stories about the gods, their powers, and epic battles that took place long ago. However, their sagas are widely perceived to be mythological stories. They talk of noble gods who fight off wicked forces, flying crafts called vimanas, and nuclear war with high detail and precision. Are we sure these were just fictional tales? Let me take you through some basics of Mahabharata and why people think that ancient India has already witnessed a nuclear war thousands of years before. Would you believe it? Well, there are lots of similarities between the weapons used in Mahabharata and the nuclear weapons created in the modern era. The war of Kurukshetra in Mahabharata continued for 18 days. The horrific experience written by Veda Vyas surpasses even modern warfare. Apart from countless deaths and destruction of huge resources, the subject that attracts the reader's eyes is the weapons used in this war. From the descriptions of these bizarre weapons, there is a reason to speculate that nuclear or similar weapons were used in the Kurukshetra War. One of the weapons was called Ugra. It was similar to modern-day firearms as well. It consisted of a bow and arrow made out of wood or bamboo and could pierce through any form of armor at any time without fail. This is quite similar to modern-day rifles, which are also made out of wood or bamboo. What you are looking at is a carving of a gun, a rifle. If you look carefully, you can clearly see that he is holding a gun and pointing to his target. Look at his eyes. He has closed his left eye and opened his right eye, as if to take aim. Of course, immediately your mind is filled with doubt. But there are various other carvings in ancient temples around India that depict what can be interpreted as people holding advanced weapons. Temples were not simply places of worship, but laboratories of knowledge. It is said that the first device identified as guns or proto-guns appeared in China from around 10th century AD. However, guns might have existed in ancient India long before this, and if so, we should be able to find mentions in ancient Indian texts. Let me present a script called Manusmriti, dated to be 2,500 years old. The Manusmriti is one of the many legal texts and constitutions of Hinduism. In ancient India, the sages often wrote their ideas on how society should run. In chapter 7, it states, "No one should use concealed weapons, barbed arrows, poisoned arrows, or projectiles kindled by fire." Projectiles kindled by fire? Sounds like a gun, right? Well, why would something like this be written in a 2,500-year-old text? In the Drona Parva, the 7th book in the Mahabharata, it provides some descriptions that sound eerily similar to the effects of a nuclear war. We beheld in the sky what appeared to us to be a mass of scarlet cloud resembling the fierce flames of a blazing fire. From the mass, many blazing missiles flashed, and tremendous roars like the noise of 1,000 drums beaten at once. And from it fell many weapons winged with gold and thousands of thunderbolts with loud explosions and many hundreds of fiery wheels. In modern times, survivors of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear disasters describe it as such. I don't remember much, but I do recall that my surroundings turned blindingly white like a million camera flashes going off at once. Then, pitch darkness. Before we move on, I just wanted to ask if you would please consider subscribing to my channel. It would really be motivating. Thank you. Now, explosions that level everything, animals screaming and engulfed in flames, pregnant women's babies dying, and metal armor melting onto the skins of warriors who wore them, all sound like the result of a nuclear blast. It mentions birds falling from the sky due to a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe, as bright as 1,000 suns. The Brahmastra is a projectile weapon that is said to be able to destroy the whole universe, capable of destroying creation and vanquishing all beings. It is termed as a fiery weapon that creates a fierce fireball. When this weapon was used by Ashwatthama to kill Arjuna's son Krishna, enraged with the recklessness, cursed Ashwatthama to wander the earth for eternity. Such is the devastating effect of the nuclear weapon. Dhanurveda Samhita contains verses that describe 117 weapons and their use. It states, O Vishwamitra, pay attention to whatever I say about the weapons. They are of various types, and one should know in detail about the sciences of weapons and how to cast, and also the act of warding off the missiles. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 20, it states that the greatest of the great is hidden in the smallest of the small. This forms the basis for the atomic energy. At the center of every atom is a nucleus. Breaking that nucleus apart or combining two nuclei together can release large amounts of energy. Nuclear weapons use that energy to create an explosion. Some academics believe that only an eyewitness could produce such a vivid impression of a weapon. The descriptions provided are so concisely put forth that it suggests an actual nuclear bomb was used in ancient Indian wars. The remnants of two ancient civilizations in the Indus Valley of modern-day Pakistan and India have puzzled archaeologists for decades. These cities were both deserted suddenly, coincidentally, around the time of the construction of the Great Pyramids in Egypt, despite having been thriving centers of technology and culture for centuries. Mohenjo-Daro, in particular, appears to have been flattened or collapsed after 600 years of being inhabited. Could this have been the location of what may have been an ancient nuclear war? The skeletons in the Indus Valley are among the most radioactive ever found, on par with remains at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. At one site, Soviet scholars found a skeleton which had a radioactive level 50 times greater than normal. The huge masses of walls and foundations of the ancient city are fused together, literally vitrified by intense heat. The question that undoubtedly arises is who used such power in that era? A major problem with this theory is that the timelines do not seem to add up. The Indus Valley civilization in Mohenjo-Daro dates back to 1700 BCE, while historians date the Mahabharata to 400 BCE. There is a 1,300-year time lapse between the fall of the Indus civilization and the epic Mahabharata. Keep in mind, though, that through colonization and invasions, many texts older than what remains today were destroyed, making it harder to pinpoint the exact chronological order of events. If we put aside the mainstream information about the Mahabharata and instead follow the astrological data in Ved Vyasa's Mahabharata, then it can be dated to the 4th millennium BCE, which is around 6,000 years ago. Let us conclude this video with Dr. J. Openheimer, who studied the Gita and various other ancient Hindu texts thoroughly, even carrying out research on the destructive capacity of the Brahmastra referred to in the Mahabharata. July 1945, Oppenheimer, known as the father of the atomic bomb, quoted the Bhagavad Gita. He said, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." After the end of the Manhattan Project, a student asked Oppenheimer if his atomic bomb was the world's first nuclear weapon. Oppenheimer replied, "In the context of the modern era, that's right." Then the question arises, did he find any evidence of the existence of nuclear weapons in olden times? What do you think? Scriptures like the Ramayana and Mahabharata are part of Indian history, not mythology. They are referred to as Itihasa in Sanskrit, which literally translates to ancient historical records, not stories. Even the Puranas, which directly translates to of ancient times, confirms the details mentioned in the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Not once did Valmiki or sage Vyas mention that they were writing stories. Besides, there is no need to detail geographical locations, chronological dates, and astronomical data in a so-called fictional story. Ancient Indians did not need to imagine stories since they were never short of real-life heroes. They would have our duty not to dismiss things that we don't understand, but instead take the initiative to learn why. Once we do, we find that ancient India was a place where spirituality embraced modern science.